Welcome everybody. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. Greetings from the hilltop. Welcome to today's webinar, A Reskilling Revolution, Lifelong Learning and the Future of Work, sponsored by Georgetown McDonough's Office of Alumni Relations. We're so glad to have you on the line. Thank you for taking time out of your work days to connect virtually with us. I'm Lauren Apicella, Associate Director of Alumni Relations for Georgetown McDonough, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. Before we get started, I would like to share a few tips and reminders. This webinar is being recorded. The recording will be made available on our website and YouTube channel within the next few days. You will receive a link to the recording in a follow-up email, which will also contain a post-webinar survey for you to take, information on upcoming events, and more ways to stay connected to Georgetown McDonough. We will take questions throughout the webinar. Please send in your questions as you have them using the Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Finally, if you're having any technical difficulties or other issues, please submit those concerns to me via the Q&A function as well. Today, we are joined by Koma Gandhi, MBA class of 2006, who is head of curriculum at Code Academy. Jason Schlotzer, William and Karen Sonneborn Term Associate Professor of Business Administration here at Georgetown McDonough, will moderate today's conversation. With that, I am pleased to turn things over to Jason, and thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you, Lauren, for the introduction and for your support in organizing today's webinar. And I'd also like to thank Michael O'Leary and Nick Lovegrove of the McDonough School, as well as Mike Fenlon, Chief People Officer at PwC, Chauncey Lennon, Vice President for the Future of Learning and Work at the Lumina Foundation, and Trina Soska, Vice President of Talent Management and Leadership Development at Amazon, for several insightful discussions about reskilling and the value of short-term credentials that has helped me understand and think about how to organize today's webinar. Today's discussion is the second in the series of events and activities that are organized by the McDonough School's new Technology, Dignity, and Future of Work initiative. This initiative draws from the diverse perspectives of the MSB community to provide thought leadership on how emerging technologies are reshaping the workplace. Grounded in the Jesuit Catholic tradition in the belief of the dignity of work, the initiative is developing a research, curriculum, and outreach agenda designed to extend our understanding of the broad issues that arise as emerging technologies impact work and the skills that we need to succeed. Consistent with the initiative's mission, our discussion today will focus on how reskilling, defined as the need for continuous learning and the frequent development of entirely new workplace skills throughout a person's career, will become commonplace for people to fully participate in the evolving technology-driven global economy. There are three primary long-term factors that are driving the importance of reskilling. The first one is the rapid emergence of artificial intelligence-powered technologies that are propelling a new era of automation, which will eliminate, change, and create jobs. The second is the need for technological acumen in order to compete in the changing workplace. And the third, and very important to realize, is the significant decline in employer-based investments in employee training over the past 20 years. That means it's become the employee's responsibility to skill and reskill themselves. Navigating these challenges to close the skills gap with an emphasis on reskilling is already transforming what we mean by education. We are witnessing a time in which employers are taking a harder look at a person's current skills and abilities, rather than the university degrees that a person has earned in the past. This situation is shedding light on the increasing value of short-term credentials, defined as industry-recognized certifications, university-awarded non-degree programs, and in some cases, company-specific training badges. Short-term credentials are now serving as stepping stones for career progression. For instance, at one large advisory firm that I've spoken with, these internal training badges are required in order to be able to bid on working in certain types of projects. So these types of short-term credentials are an emerging area in education. It is increasingly the case that a person who does not invest in reskilling will fall behind as the tech-driven nature of work evolves. The need to reskill in the flow, as we say, will likely affect people's daily work and personal lives due to an increasing need to not only perform their job assignments, but to also reskill on their own time in order to achieve career advancement, or perhaps reskill simply to maintain their current job. Those people who lack the resources, opportunities, and support to continually learn are at risk of falling behind. Given all of this, it is readily apparent that reskilling will be an important aspect of the future of work. And today, we're fortunate enough that we can discuss these topics with our distinguished panelist, Koma Gandhi. Welcome, Koma.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
Before we begin, I would like to provide our audience with an outline of today's discussion. Our first few questions will be about Code Academy, which is where Koma works, and how the company is disrupting the traditional education process. We will then shift into questions about the potential value of short-term credentials to a variety of employees, including those with non-traditional educational backgrounds, as well as those who are mid to late career employees who are seeking reskilling advice. And then last, we will discuss the future of reskilling, including factors that might lead reskilling to replace a traditional university education, and which specific skills and skill paths are most in demand today. So Koma, we're going to begin our questions now. So tell us a little bit about your professional background since you graduated from MSB and your current role at Code Academy.
Sure. So after leaving MSB, I spent some time working for a small-ish business government consulting firm in the Washington, D.C. area. And I was very interested in understanding some of the intersections of policy and government and how that affected how businesses operate in the environments in which they did. And it was actually through a network contact of mine that I wound up coming to New York City and starting to work in the financial sector, where I examined opportunities to basically problem solve operational issues that had an impact on investment decisions. So it was really leveraging my background of being interested in problem solving, understanding how things could be taken apart and put back together better than they were, and applying that to the financial services sector, which of course I showed up just in time for the great market dislocation and crash of 2009, which gave me a lot of time to sort of rethink what I wanted to do and how I could leverage my skills in perhaps a similar career. And that's how I found my way to Ernst & Young, where I spent 6 years basically having learned a lot of lessons about how different types of investment structures and investment firms were sort of put together, helping those types of firms solve problems that they were facing after the market crisis. And I enjoyed the operational nature of that work, really trying to understand, again, how are things put together? How can we make them more efficient? How can we improve processes? And then decided that I was going to apply that to working at Morgan Stanley. And I was there as an executive director in the wealth management team, basically doing a lot of work to help people realize goals through efficiencies gained through improvements to operational processes and the application of technology to solve problems. So I would say throughout my career from prior to MSB, I'd always been adjacent to technology as an enabler to solve specific discrete issues, and been able to sort of translate between sort of business-facing folks and technology-facing folks to be able to understand their challenges, figure out how to apply technology to solve them, and then move towards creating a better outcome. But there was always something kind of nagging in me about issues concerning access. And while I was at Morgan Stanley, I was presented with a really interesting opportunity to join Code Academy, a late stage startup, to help them scale their ability to produce curriculum to be able to reach even more learners and provide even more opportunities for their learners to gain really much needed skills. So it was a little difficult leaving the financial services sector because I'd known it for quite some time and had felt very comfortable there. But I felt like the value proposition offered by Code Academy to apply those skills of understanding how processes are put together and scale them to be able to really make a difference in people's lives was something that I really couldn't pass up. And I made the decision to leave Morgan Stanley and join Code Academy, and I have been thrilled with the experience thus far. And it has been an absolute pleasure to be part of something where the ultimate goal for us in the curriculum team is to create engaging curriculum, to create diverse learning experiences, and to be able to deliver something into the hands of a learner that will hopefully make them better off for having had the experience of being on the Code Academy platform.
That's really fascinating. And you talked a lot about problem solving and building and being a boundary spanner between technology and operations. And in your role as head of curriculum, how are you building a new approach that draws, it seems, more from what tech innovators are doing versus what the traditional classroom environment is like?
Mm-hmm. So one of the great things about Code Academy is that we have people who come from academia and people who are also practitioners of the concepts and the technologies that we're teaching learners. So we have the opportunity both to draw on the pedagogical discipline of being able to create a cohesive learning environment, and being able to understand from people who are actually applying these technologies and concepts, what are the things that you wish you had learned, or what are the things that we can offer our learners so that they're prepared for the next thing coming rather than an innovation or a concept or technology that's been out for a while. So we provide a lot of foundational opportunities for people to learn. You can't get away from learning the basics of syntax. You can't get away from learning the basics of functions and things like that. But we also try and leverage our understanding and our contacts and people who are actually in the workforce who are practitioners of that to help us understand, how should we structure this course? What are the best concepts to teach? Should we teach this concept, which we know is popular, but it's actually going to be a little bit outdated, let's say, in the next couple of months or next year or so? Or should we teach this new technology, which may not be as popular, but we know that's the direction that this particular concept is going? So we have a mixture of people, both internally, who help us shape our learning so that it meets sort of our internal standards and it works within our interactive learning environment, which is really, it's just a really cool way for our learners to get their hands dirty and get coding as soon as possible. But we also have insight from practitioners and subject matter experts in industry who can tell us, you know what, that's a little bit of an outdated approach. We think that you should offer it this way because it'll be a much more benefit to your learners who are trying to apply it directly, either as a career switcher or in their current career to try and upskill and bring more skills to the table.
Got it. So it sounds like in this area of disruptive education and the reskilling, you're really working closely with practitioners in order to have a great understanding of the skills that are in demand now, rather than maybe the more traditional classroom approach, which might be focused on textbooks, which may be 10 years old.
We do, because we recognize that our curriculum developers are experts at creating the Code Academy experience for learners to engage with. So we have an interactive learning environment, which is sort of like an interactive development environment with sort of training wheels on it. So it's an opportunity for even the newest person to get their hands on the keyboard and start coding in an environment that will give them the type of feedback that they need at the early stages of their journey. But we do leverage subject matter experts, because even though we're sort of the experts in our learning environment and our pedagogical approach and how we deliver curriculum and how we feel like it's most effective, we still need subject matter experts who can basically help us shape and design our curriculum to make sure that we're not teaching something from 3 years ago. We're teaching something looking forward to make sure that we're hopefully equipping our learners with the most up-to-date versions, up-to-date concepts that they're going to need to apply.
Yeah, that's really cool. And there's an audience question here that's very related to that. Could you give a couple of examples of some of these most in-demand skills that you're currently working with or working on inside of your current curriculum shop? And the question goes on to say, in-demand skills that provide a living wage and good upward mobility. We're all looking for that.
Yeah. So we did some fairly, some really good research. I think it was in the fall of 2019, literally looking at what are the types of jobs that are in demand? What are jobs that, both from, let's say, Bureau of Labor Statistics to just brute force LinkedIn, what are people looking for, and what types of job titles are those? And then what are the skills underneath those job titles that they are looking for people to be able to demonstrate? And with that information, we took an internal look to say, okay, looking at our catalog now, how it's evolved, how do we evolve it in the future to meet those requirements? So we have a lot, let's say, of web development related content, and we have some data science related content and some foundational computer science content, but we were much heavier in the web development space because at the time, we had a lot of people who were coming to us like, I want to learn how to build a website. I want to be a front-end web developer, which is great. But when we look at what sort of the labor market is telling us, there are other things that are in demand. There are other skills where there's a shortage of people who are looking for those skills and people who have those skills, and there's a gap. And specifically in the areas of data science and data analytics, cybersecurity, those are areas where we recognize that we need to increase the amount of curriculum available for our learners to be able to equip them with the fundamental skills for them to be competitive in those types of roles. We've also looked at our web development curriculum and said, can we do better in packaging things in a way that are very discrete career-oriented outcomes, such that an individual who's saying, you know what, I really want to be a back-end web developer, but I don't quite know how to get there. How do we present curriculum that's compelling, that's targeted, and that teaches them the core set of skills that they would need to be successful if they decided they wanted to pursue that path? So we're in the process of revamping some of our curriculum offerings to offer those discrete career-oriented curriculum packages, so that if somebody says, I want to be a full stack software engineer, we can clearly say, here's a curriculum that you need, here are the concepts that you need to master, here are the various checks for understanding the project's application of those technologies, so that when you finish, you feel like not only have you learned it, but you have demonstrated it in a way where you would feel comfortable applying to or pursuing an opportunity in that area. So we definitely recognize that our earlier focus on web development needs to shift. And we're doing that by applying more resources to developing and sort of bolstering our data science related curriculum to include machine learning, to include introduction to artificial intelligence, and even moving into the mobile platform, because we also see that there's interest in mobile development. And we have sort of early stage curriculum, but we don't have a built out curriculum to say, I want to be an iOS developer. We can't get you all the way there yet, but that's what we're planning to do. So our sort of first priority is deepening our data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence type of offerings, because there's just basic skill sets and basic knowledge that we want to make sure that our learners have. And then expanding into places like mobile development, cybersecurity, to be able to start that process of equipping our learners with fundamental knowledge that they would need to potentially be competitive, or to upskill in those areas where there's that gap between demand for people in these jobs and skill sets that match that demand.
Right. Okay. And another audience question that really fits well into the flow of our conversation here. You know, people at different ages learn in different ways. So perhaps somebody who's 16 learns differently than somebody who's 36 or even 66. What have you learned about how people learn, and how are organizations like yours adapting the way that the courses are set up in order to be flexible around individual learning styles, whether it's an age-related learning style, or other types of backgrounds?
So for one thing, we recognize that we lead with our learning environment, because our fundamental understanding and feedback that we've gotten from learners is we want them to feel like they're coding as soon as possible. So for many people, maybe for a 16-year-old, that's not such a big deal. But for somebody who may be more advanced in their careers, or who had never had an opportunity to even put their fingers on a keyboard and type code, for them to feel like they're actually doing something and they're actually coding and they're actually typing in something and seeing the product of what they've just typed is very important for us, because it gives a learner a sense of accomplishment. And the consistent feedback that we get from our learners is that they appreciate the feeling of being a coder, even if they're starting off at Hello World and that's the first thing that they would have done.
Yeah.
So we also recognize that because we're a self-paced environment, not everybody is going to have time to be able to sit down every day, which we would hope. So we're looking to diversify the way that we present curriculum to our learners. So we're looking to use videos, looking to use articles. Some of them are interactive articles where you'll go through, learn a concept, answer some questions about it. Different types of project types, so that maybe earlier in your learning journey, it's very step-by-step where we walk you through the tasks that you need to complete in order to complete the project. But then later on, when it's more challenging, we kind of take the training wheels off and we ask you to do a little bit more independent thinking to try and arrive at how that project should be solved. And we're also introducing more of a capstone project for our career-oriented paths that will allow someone to build a project and then be able to show it to someone outside of Code Academy as a builder portfolio of projects, to be able to evidence the fact that they have been able to master a concept, apply that concept, and then produce something that shows that type of work. But we are recognizing that these videos can be very interesting and helpful. People can refer back to them. We do project walkthroughs where you actually have somebody taking you through how to solve something. But we do come back to making sure that our core experience is in our interactive learning environment, because we do recognize the importance of people trying to get that sense of accomplishment, who may have been told that coding is too hard, or this is not for you, or people who are programmers look like this and you don't look like this, so this is not for you. To be able to sit down, put their hands on the keyboard, start learning immediately. And we get feedback from our learners all the time that, I was a 55-year-old stay-at-home mom and I'm learning Python, or I always wanted to learn web development, but I'm 35 years old and I've got a family that's depending on me, so I can't take time off to go to a boot camp. This has allowed me to build the skills where I feel confident that I might be able to pursue this job opportunity.
Yeah, I'm the product of reskilling myself. I mean, the Technology, Dignity, and Future of Work initiative that I'm leading, I've had to reskill to learn about artificial intelligence tools. And that's something that didn't exist 10 years ago in the mainstream of the business world. And it's actually surprising, and I encourage our listeners today, it's surprising how 6 hours here, 8 hours there, you can actually become very familiar with these concepts. You can become familiar with how cybersecurity works. You can become familiar with how machine learning works. You don't have to end up becoming a machine learning developer, but just being a boundary spanner who can speak the language and think in a particular way about these topics is incredibly valuable. And I don't want to make it seem like reskilling means changing your career, taking 6, 7, 8 classes in a particular area. You can certainly do that. But even just going to Code Academy or going to a similar type of organization and sitting through 1 6-hour period of time being introduced to a new concept is incredibly valuable, and you'll certainly take something positive away from that. Part of the reason why we need to do these kinds of reskilling initiatives is because employer investment in training in the workplace, it had grown substantially in the 1980s and 1990s as the use of personal computers and the internet started to reshape the workplace. But employer investments in training have declined significantly since 2000, even though there's a rapid increase in how technology is being used in the workplace. And according to a recent study, only 10% of employees report that they actually receive employer providing training during the year. And when they do, the majority of these employees indicate that they only receive less than 1 week of training from their employer. So Koma, from your viewpoint here, what are some actionable steps that either a new or experienced employee can do to reskill and obtain some value from this investment, perhaps receiving some short-term credential or receiving some type of non-degree certificate?
Well, I think for that employee, it's important for her or to think about, what are the things that she wants to learn? What are the things that she's identified that are either gaps or opportunities? Because I don't always want to characterize it as a gap, which implies that there's a deficiency. It could be that, hey, I am talking to a lot of people who are very proficient with data analytics, and I need to be able to be conversant with them and be able to take my conversations to a level that I can't. And I think that it's important to just sort of define what that looks like, because the universe is vast. There are a lot of educational technology companies out there that will teach you everything from Spanish to painting to how to balance your checkbook to entrepreneurships, but being very targeted about what you're looking for will probably help narrow that universe. And then being, I guess, understanding how much time you have to dedicate. And if that's 15 or 20 minutes or half an hour a day, that's fine, because that means that's incremental progress, even if it takes you a little bit longer to get to that space. One of the things that we appreciate about our platform is that we're self-paced. So it's not a situation where you spend a lot of money on a boot camp and then you have to go along at the pace of the boot camp. Otherwise, you're going to fall behind, or you're going to put your investment at risk. Or other programs that might be cohorted, which can be helpful for the community sense of being able to advance your learning. But for people who might have a full-time job, family obligations, maybe you're taking care of ill parents, maybe there's a lot of things going on, you're just not able to chunk out that time. So if you're a self-paced learner, there's probably ed tech companies that are more suited for that. If you know that you have 3 hours every morning that you can dedicate, perhaps a cohorted program that's a little bit more traditional with a timeline and more, I would say, set timeframes for you to study would be helpful or beneficial. But I think the first step is just figuring out what are those things that you want to learn, not shying away from a topic because you think it's too hard or you think that, well, this seems like it's daunting. There are places like Code Academy that don't care where you start on your journey. We will help you get to where you want to go, and we'll do it in a way that helps you build confidence in your skill set so that you feel like after you've accomplished that thing, you feel like you've achieved that mastery, you can demonstrate that skill, and you're able to apply it, even if it took you half an hour a day for 6 months or an hour a day for 3 months. It's about making progress towards that journey. So I think the first step is really defining what it is you would love to learn that you feel like will help you either in your personal or your professional life, finding the right type of delivery platform. If you're video-based, if you want an interactive learning environment, those are really different things. And then realistically setting aside that time and not beating yourself up that, oh, it's only 30 minutes today. That's 30 more minutes than you'd spent the day previously learning a new concept, and you're making that incremental progress on that journey to get there.
So it sounds like 3 actionable steps there. Self-reflection on what you're interested in learning and where the opportunities could be. a little bit of research to figure out which platform or which offering might work best for you, whether it is all video, whether it's a combination of video and reading, whether it's a combination of video and maybe some on-site programming. And then third, putting some time aside to actually do this and not feeling guilty if perhaps it's only a little bit of time every day, or maybe some days you miss it. That's one of the real great benefits about self-paced learning is, you know, if you set aside the time, you can do it. But if you have to miss it every once in a while, that's not too bad either. So that's great advice, I think, for our viewers. One question from the audience that's related to that. Do you have any specific advice, maybe for people that are in parts of the world where digital infrastructure could be difficult to access?
Yeah, that is a conversation that we are having at Code Academy, because we recognize that not everybody has access to excellent broadband technology that has adequate bandwidth to be able to access our learning environment. So we don't have a solution to that yet in terms of being able to offer something lighter. We do have a mobile platform that we're looking to sort of give some attention to and revise. But I would say that that's one of the things where we definitely don't have an offering that would take into account some of these areas where the type of internet connectivity may not be as robust as it is, say, in the United States. But it is something we think about because we recognize there are a lot of people out there who may have difficulty getting to the internet cafe or getting to a place where they're able to have the adequate bandwidth so that they can run things smoothly in a learning environment. So that is definitely something where we have discussed the need to do more work to figure out how do we access learners in communities where that type of connectivity is just not available or reliable.
Yeah, and for the audience member who raised that question, I would be more than happy to correspond with you if you wanted to email me at jason.schletzer@georgetown.edu, because I've been thinking about how to put together a webinar that deals with issues of digital infrastructure. So I'd be more than happy to discuss that with you. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about short-term credentialing, because this is definitely something related to reskilling and is a trend that we're seeing in the workplace right now. Some proponents of short-term reskilling, I'm being one of them, point out that they have several really important advantages. They can be tailored to an industry's need. They can confirm somebody's proficiency in a topic when they have some kind of standardized exam. I'm thinking about Microsoft certification, Google certification, Code Academy type of certifications. And data shows that these credentials are actually more equitably distributed across people of many different backgrounds, young and old, different racial and ethnic profiles, than our traditional university degrees. So let's get to this notion of could someday reskilling actually shift the hiring process in a significant way to where employers are really focused on these reskilling types of credentials more than the traditional hiring process of being focused on university degrees?
So I don't know that they'll replace, but I think that they will augment, and they will further evidence proficiency in specific areas and could be a differentiator between applicants, where if an applicant can say that they have a certificate or they have a demonstrated proficiency where they went through a course, they completed assessments, that it evidences and sort of standardizes the way that they can demonstrate those skills, that will be, especially within technology companies and technology adjacent companies, a way of differentiating candidates amongst each other. So I don't know that we've seen it in a situation where I know that certain employers have said, hey, if you pursue this credential, we can value it as heavily as having a 4-year degree. And I think that those are things that will evolve as people get more comfortable with credentialing and more comfortable with understanding that a credential can evidence a specific mastery of concepts of a particular academic pursuit. And I think that's an evolving conversation. I know that Google literally just announced, I think it was yesterday, the initiative of Google Career Certificates to be able to reach out to find people who may have been overlooked by their traditional hiring process and enable them with the tools to be able to learn, demonstrate skill sets, and show that they have workplace ready skills to apply to Google or to other employers that would recognize that certificate. So I think as you see larger entrants entering that space, like the Googles of the world, like the Microsofts of the world, who already have credentialing for their individual Microsoft specific types of courses, but expanding that universe, the more that you see these larger sort of entities recognizing that credentialing is a valid signal to demonstrate proficiency, the more I think employers will look at those credentials and say, okay, I trust that this credential means that this person has differentiated themselves by demonstrating a proficiency in data analytics or a proficiency in machine learning. And therefore I feel more comfortable because they've actually evidenced it through a certificate rather than a bullet on a resume that may or may not demonstrate the depth of proficiency that they might need to demonstrate on the job. We're talking to other entities about that as well. We've started credentialing our own courses in terms of issuing certificates, but we're very much looking to explore that landscape because we also know that from our business to business customers, they are very interested in that certification because they want to know that if they're investing in one of their employees to help them skill, that there needs to be evidence that they've made progress to that skill and evidence that they've actually achieved that particular skill.
Yeah, and so Google yesterday, for those of you maybe who haven't seen it, announced that they're developing this Google certificate offering. And 2 weeks ago, Microsoft announced that they're creating something called Microsoft Learning, which is using web scraping of LinkedIn to figure out what are the most in-demand jobs, and then organizing Microsoft certification materials to prepare people for those in-demand jobs. And in response to the COVID-19 situation, Microsoft has made all of this material available for free, and you can get certifications instead of the usual price of, I think, around $300, they're offering the certification exam for $20 because they have a goal of retraining 25 million people during this pandemic in order to be Microsoft certified. And I know maybe to some of our webinar participants, that sounds like a heroic kind of feat, but some of these Microsoft certifications are simply basic understanding of artificial intelligence. It doesn't have to be something significantly advanced in terms of being a developer itself. And as Colma was just saying, Code Academy is also thinking about these offerings as well. I've seen one really interesting example where a major Wall Street bank has started to hire high school students and offer them internal business training in order to be able to do entry-level jobs inside of the bank instead of hiring people with university degrees. Again, this is really interesting notion of the disruption of education with skilling, reskilling, and short-term credentials. So let's think about how this credentialing can level the playing field among people that maybe are of different ages. And an audience member question and several of the questions that were submitted in advance of the webinar had to deal with people who are in their mid or late career who need to make this tech switch. For instance, I know another major Wall Street bank is abandoning Excel, and it's going through a huge retraining effort to train all of its employees to use other types of data analytics software instead of Excel. So what is your advice to mid and late career people on how to best get started at this reskilling journey? And what actionable steps do you have of how they can best adapt in the workplace?
Well, I find it interesting and mind-boggling that a financial services firm would crowbar people off of Excel, because I always used to joke that if something happened with Excel, that the Wall Street would grind to a screeching halt, because it's sort of the duct tape and the glue that holds together so many different things. But I also think that there's no time like the present, especially with opportunities for self-paced learning, because there is no real, I mean, other than time, which of course we all wish we could have an extra hour in each day. For people who are mid-career, there are so many opportunities to go out and find the type of specific curriculum, specific learning experience that works for them without having to take time away from their jobs. Maybe it means getting up a little bit earlier or trying to find opportunities to shift childcare duties or other duties to be able to carve that time out. But I would say for people who are mid or late career who are looking at something like that, such as seismic shift off of Excel, or recognizing that there's so many more data-driven analyses that need to be undertaken in order to feel comfortable with being able to make decisions. I would say that there's a lot of opportunities to look at things like Tableau. That's one of the most popular
that's what this bank
tools out there.
That's what this bank was shifting to, is Tableau.
Yeah, and I mean, it's sort of the next logical step. Rather than trying to gut things out in Visual Basic and Excel, why not use something that is more robust and is almost sort of a de facto standard in business intelligence. Mm-hmm. So I would say getting familiar with those types of technologies. And if you're not familiar, something as simple as going straight to the website and finding opportunities there for learning. There are tons of video-based courses. We're hopefully looking at an opportunity to work with one of these firms with their business tools to be able to create courses to help people learn. But there are a lot of video-based courses out there, specifically for Tableau, to help get people familiar and comfortable with using the tool. So I would, again, for people who are sort of mid-career, people who are recognizing that they need to be a little bit more fluent in technology, a little bit more fluent in, let's say, data analytics, especially if you're thinking about Wall Street, working in financial services firms, being able to go out and seek out the type of learning that applies. But I would say specifically with data analytics and data science, that is probably a space where even if you took an introductory course, that's going to be time well spent. Like, to your point, you don't have to be a hardcore data scientist in order to be fluent in data science related concepts. And I think that especially if you're mid to late career, the way that things are moving, there's going to be an expectation of data proficiency. And being able to have a basic level of understanding, even on basic statistical concepts or basic data analytics tools, will be monumental in that person's ability to remain current and to remain, I would say, I hate to say relevant, because sometimes people will assume that, oh, this late career person is just not going to be with it, or not a digital native, or didn't grow up using this type of technology. That's ridiculous. There are plenty of avenues out there, even to build a very basic level of proficiency in some of these data related concepts, so that you can have those deeper conversations and add more value to the types of analyses and the types of decisions that you're making in an organization. Even for marketers, marketing is about data and being able to understand how data relates to different aspects of the marketing lifecycle. If you're a marketer and you don't have a proficiency with data, you probably want to go out and seek out the opportunity to at least get some of these introductory concepts down so that you can apply them. Even if you're not going to be a practitioner, you can ask those types of questions to help you make better decisions.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you mentioned marketing, because with some AI executives that I've been speaking with about this initiative, some people are really focused on students need to learn tech skills. And one of the CEOs of an AI implementation company looked at me and said, if your marketing class isn't 100% math, then it's outdated. So that just echoes your point about some of the viewpoint of, if you're in the marketing area, the kind of data analytics and data skills that would be useful opportunities to think about just a short reskilling class. Yeah. Okay, one related audience question here. And I'll just read the question because it's well worded. One of the challenges we are facing in our company is the need to reskill our workforce while at the same time keeping the train running. The ability to build the skills of the future while at the same time maintaining service delivery excellence to our clients seems elusive. And this is for you, Koma. What are some of the ways that you have seen organizations resolve or tackle this challenge?
Oof, that is a tough one.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
It is. So in conversations that I've had with our sort of head of business development and he specifically works with enterprise level customers, is being able to create some sort of accountability within the organization and establishing timelines where it's a mutually agreeable sort of relationship where there's a goal that's set for that employee. And I've seen it done also, having discussions with other folks who are helping businesses tackle the same challenge of, we have to keep the trains running, but we also have to make sure that the people who are keeping the trains running are learning how to keep better trains running, and skilling for those newer, sleeker trains. It's really being realistic about the progress that can be expected. And then some B2B, I would say, dashboarding that's available from providers who are ed tech companies working with enterprise customers. They create timelines and they create sort of metrics of progress that, even to the point of being incremental, are realistic given the fact that somebody can't carve an hour out of a day, but maybe out of every week, they might be able to find maybe half an hour during lunch, maybe half an hour before work, but really trying to establish a timeline and then a mutual agreement on that timeline, and then sort of accountability for that timeline, so that the expectation is after 4 months, we should see progress on this dashboard that so-and-so has completed these assignments and is progressing towards that goal. But that is a conversation that we have a lot, and that our business development folks have a lot with their enterprise level customers. I can't tell you that they have a one-size-fits-all solution, but what I have seen is tooling and dashboards that create timelines that are mutually agreed upon, and then how incremental progress is measured, so that if you're a team manager and you've assigned this course to a particular employee, being able to proactively see, oh, well, they're only at 40%, they should be at 60%. Let me see, or let me intervene early to see what's going on. It could be that employee is dealing with putting out fires, so that we don't want the trains to derail, so they had to sacrifice their training for making sure that things work. Yeah. But that's the way that I've seen it, but I've not seen a good one size fits all. But a lot of it I've seen is sort of dashboarding, accountability, tracking, and then sort of mutual ongoing conversations about expectations for progress, and then what happens when real life shows up.
Okay, that's good advice about dashboarding and tracking progress and just taking little steps each week. If the person who asked that question would contact me, I could ask my contacts at the bank that's retraining its workforce from Excel to Tableau. I could ask them about what steps are they taking inside their organization to pull off this kind of transformation, because it's a bank with more than 100,000 employees. You have to assume that 10 or 20,000 of these employees are being retrained on Tableau. So I could ask that question for you if you contact me directly. Another question that's related to maybe several of the questions that have been asked by the audience is basically, if I have 6 hours of time and I wanted to take one technology-focused course, what would you suggest?
Ooh.
Hey, you're head of curriculum. This is what it's like to be a professor, where students ask you for advice on what classes to take.
Honestly, my gut says anything that will help you with an introduction, if you don't already have that, to data analysis.
Introduction to data analysis.
Yes. I don't necessarily think, if you're interested in learning a programming language, then that's great. But I think that, and you'll probably, with any introduction to data analysis type of course, be expected to learn a little bit about that. And I think it's not necessarily about the programming. I don't think it's about the coding. I think it's about the thought process and solving problems, and understanding how to approach that type of problem solving process. Absolutely. But I think that you can't go wrong with an introduction to data analysis or some sort of early level course in data analytics and data science, because the way that the world is moving and the amount of data that's being generated from everything from how people are shopping online to, even at Code Academy, how people are in our learning environment, what are they doing, what events are they firing, how do we analyze that to figure out what's resonating, what isn't, what might be too hard, what might be too easy. It all comes down to data and being able to understand it at a much deeper level, and being able to have the tools to have conversations, to be able to probe data, to understand what's the significance, how do I make decisions, what should I be worried about, how do I allocate resources. So I would strongly suggest that if you're just thinking about anything, an introduction to data analysis, an introduction to data science would be well worth that 6 hours. Even if 6 hours doesn't allow you to complete the course, it would at least get you thinking in a way that perhaps you hadn't have had the time to, to think that way or think about how to solve problems like that. And it could lead you into other directions where maybe this isn't the correct course for me, but I found an interest and I'm going to read this book about this particular data related issue, or how artificial intelligence is involved in our daily lives, or how do I interact with different types of aspects of machine learning. So I think that that would be a helpful place to start, because even if that 6 hours doesn't complete the entire course, it will at least create, it will spur thinking in a way that perhaps you hadn't approached problems before, and that will push you into a direction that will allow you to view things, to view your decisioning, to view how you lead, how you manage, how you take in information, how you analyze that information in a different way.
Okay, that's fantastic. And I think that it would be the same answer to this question, but this question's a little bit different. Sometimes it's difficult to figure out what to get started on because technology is changing so fast. So how do I know that I'm investing in the right thing that won't suddenly be out of date? What sources would you recommend for people to understand what the current trends are and where they know to invest their time? I mean, it certainly seems like the trend toward data and data analytics and data analysis is here to stay. That is not an investment that's going to go obsolete anytime soon. But that's my impression of your answer, but what would your answer be?
I would agree that so one of the questions that we get a lot from learners is, well, what language should I learn first? Because we offer Python, we offer Java, we offer C#, we offer a ton of different languages. And my advice would be, it doesn't matter, just start somewhere, because the type of thinking that you're going to learn as an entry-level programmer will be similar. The syntax might be different, the language might be different, but the thought process and that type of thinking like a programmer is going to be common across all languages. Now, if you know that you're more interested in, let's say, web development, then it would make sense for you to start up with a markup language like HTML or learning JavaScript. If you know that you're interested potentially in more general purpose language, then perhaps Python would be a good place to start. But at the entry point of your journey, starting is the most important thing. And then learning how to think like a programmer or think like a coder is a very important skill. And that's a skill that you'll learn once you start that process, that you can apply to any number of different languages, because you'll have started that process of thinking about problems, breaking them down into logical steps, assembling those steps, and then applying that to solve the particular issue that you're trying to think about. So, and if you're not necessarily interested in programming per se, some of these higher level sort of introduction to programming or introduction to computer science will help you with those concepts and understanding what are programmers thinking about. When I ask my technology team to build this, what are the steps that they're taking in order to do it, and how do they work together in order to solve that problem? So I think that it's probably the first step is just taking that step. And even if you spend a couple of hours learning Python and you say, well, this necessarily isn't for me, you have along the way learned some concepts that will help you understand how other programming languages work, and understand sort of from an introductory level how people who are using that language or doing that work every day think about solving those problems.
Yeah. I mean, I took 4 hours of Python introduction to natural language processing. And with my business background, 4 hours was enough time for me to be able to identify potential business risks from the implementation of natural language processing, okay? And also be able to anticipate how to control those risks. And I think for many of our audience members, that's exactly the type of reskilling to consider. You don't have to become a developer, but you can learn a lot about how these tools work in a very short period of time. And the value that you have is combining that with your deep business expertise. And that's where you can become this kind of boundary spanner, where you can understand the technology and its limitations, but you can also figure out how to apply it in the business context. So if you have 6 hours or 10 hours, you know, COMA suggests data analytics and data analysis, which is here to stay. That investment is not going to go obsolete. And another option, a second option, would be spend a little bit of time, just a little bit of time, understanding how these artificial intelligence tools work, and then bring your business expertise and combine those two things together, and that will be a very powerful experience for you. Okay, I think we have time for one more question from the audience. And I'll broaden it just a little bit. Do you think that there would be a point in time where these kinds of short-term credentials will replace something like a master's degree? Or what do you believe is someone's thought process, or should be someone's thought process, when they think about a master's degree and its 2-year or maybe longer commitment and the cost, versus reskilling and collecting maybe several short-term certificates through programs such as Code Academy or similar types of offerings?
I think that we might be driving towards that, but we're not going to be there in the near term, because there are a lot of different, I would say, there are a lot of different companies trying to solve this problem. So how do you weigh a credential from company A versus company B? Whereas you're pretty confident that if you've gotten an MBA, there's a certain fundamental mastery of concepts that's expected on the other end of that journey. So I would say that in the near term, it's complementary, where a lot of people come to Code Academy not necessarily looking for a replacement yet, and perhaps it's because we haven't generated curriculum that would have the breadth of a replacement for a particular type of degree, but they look at it as a complementary support to their journey, where if they're in a class and they're taking Python, or if they're in CS 50 or CS 101 or Introduction to Computer Science in college, they use us as a supplement to help their learning journey, to reinforce concepts. So we don't necessarily right now see us as replacing a degree, but we see us as an enhancement to be able to provide a deeper learning experience for someone who is in a traditional environment, to be able to support them on that journey. There could be a day later, especially with the disruption that this pandemic has caused with traditional classroom instruction, where that is where the industry, where ed tech moves. But I would say right now, a lot of us in the ed tech space are not necessarily in a space where we're looking to replace a 2-year degree, but we're looking to be an alternative to specific skill sets that might be obtained in that degree program, and or a complement to somebody who is moving through a traditional degree program to be able to enhance and deepen specific aspects of their learning journey.
Wonderful. Coma, we need to wrap up. And this has been a wonderful discussion. Audience members, thank you so much for all the questions that you've submitted. We tried to get to as many of them as you can. If you would like your question answered, please contact me directly, and I can coordinate with Coma and others to make sure we get your question answered fully. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you to Lauren for organizing this, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you both. Thank you, guys.